All right, good morning. I'm with Michael Carr. Michael has had a busy last couple of months, including closing a financing just last week. Things have changed a lot here in the summer of 2025. We're going to get into it. So I was thinking back to when I made a site visit to BTT's Nighthawk property in the Walker Lane Trend in June of 2023. And it was a very different time in the market. It kind of didn't feel so good to be a junior mining investor back then. And I visited a few projects. So I visited, the Allegiant, Castleberg and Boss, deposits, I guess we could call them. The Boss could be called a mine, even though it's not in operation currently. And then I visited Nighthawk, and I visited Tonopah, Blackrock Silver, Suma Silver, et cetera, right? And at that time, it's one of those trips where I don't think I got any trade or investment ideas in that moment, but it gave me a lot of context for what was going to happen in the future and some context for this conversation we're going to have today with Mike. So we're going to get into Nighthawk and all things BTT with Michael Carr. Mike, how are you today?
I'm great, Robert. Nice to be chatting with you again.
It's my pleasure. So I guess my first question, Mike, is what changed over the last few months and what led to this financing?
Well, the Nighthawk prospect has sort of matured since you and I were on the ground there 2 years ago. We were basically on the ground prospecting areas where the magnetic survey we'd flown gave us some indications that there might be some gold-bearing structures there. And we went out looking for gold-bearing mineralization in the alluvial material out on the property. And lo and behold, we found a fair bit. And I contended that it was locally derived more than it was transported out of the mountain range. The property's on the pediment, as we call it, which is the area between a mountain range and the basin area in the valley. So there's very thin alluvial cover there. And it's turned out with some subsequent soil pH testing that our targets look pretty prospective. We think we've detected weathering sulphides, gold's associated with sulphides in that belt. So we're pretty excited, and after this financing now has been completed, we're going to do a maiden drill program. So that's the primary focus of the next few months for us. But at the same time, good things are happening in Michigan. And on our LM nickel-copper project, which is magmatic nickel-copper sulphides are kind of in the news in the junior mining world because of Talon Metals discoveries. And our LM property hosts a mineralized intrusion. You can see some of that mineralization here in this photograph. Those are blebs of pyrrhotite, chalcopyrite, and pentlandite primarily. And that material's been transported up the conduit. And we're basically concerned with looking for the source of that. In the meantime, Talon Metals has resumed drilling only 120 meters east of our property boundary. So they drilled 4 holes last year and apparently didn't hit what they were looking for, but had enough encouragement to come back this year and are back. There is a drill turning right now on that site. So any success that Talon has with Lundin Mining's funding will, I think, reflect very positively on this project. So why don't we start with LM, the nickel project, and run through a few slides there, and then we'll get into the Nighthawk gold again.
Go for
it. We'll expand this. So there's a disclaimer, standard stuff. LM is a joint venture between Bitterroot Resources, we're the operator at 51%, listed on the venture exchange, of course, and a private company called Below Exploration, which is a group of private investors, largely based in Grand Rapids, Michigan, in the Lower Peninsula. We're only focused on high-grade magmatic nickel-copper sulfides in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And I've had this project for over 10 years since we did the first acquisition, and it took a long time to get funding. And fortunately, we found Below Exploration who were eager to get in, and they've been very supportive since. When we acquired the property, there wasn't a lot going on in the Upper Peninsula. This is a geology map of the Upper Peninsula. The Eagle mine is over here, and that has been operating since 2014. It was discovered in roughly 2002 by Rio Tinto, was purchased by Lundin Mining, and it's been a very successful high-grade magmatic nickel-copper mine. While Rio Tinto was exploring in the district prior to the sale to Lundin and withdrawing from Michigan, they discovered the Boulder Dash prospect, they discovered the Roland prospect, and the Bic deposit over here. They drilled at Haystack East and Haystack North, and this area is now pretty hot because of what's happened with Talon's fabulous discovery at Tamarack. People are paying attention, and our LM property is basically right in the middle of the Roland Lake area, and right beside the Roland drilling of Talon. Perseverance Metals is another new company that is going public in the next few weeks. They've acquired some 250 square miles of mineral rights over here that we owned with Altius Minerals, and they're in the process of earning 100%, and we own today about 6% of Perseverance, which would be worth about $1 million. But let's talk about the Roland geology here, the situation. This is a drone view from above, looking straight down, and we've superimposed the ground magnetic data that we have. So the LM intrusion is this purple blob over here. It's a subvertical conduit. We drilled 26 holes in between 2020 and 2022, and 10 of those holes hit sulphide mineralization. These red dots here are basically showing you where the sulphides were intersected. We also determined that the conduit is plunging steeply to the south, or east-southeast, on what's known as the Roland Trend, where there's a series of intrusions along this trend for several miles. Here's Talon's drill sites. Over here, you can see some trucks parked down there. There's the first drill hole, and they're drilling from two sites in here is meant to cut across the Roland Trend and intersect the LM intrusion at a depth of about 600 to 700 meters. There's about 150 meters between our deepest drill hole, which is only 300 meters deep, and the property boundary. So there's plenty of room to hide a significant body of massive sulfide in there. And of course, on this side of the conduit, there could be additional, well, there are additional targets over here that need testing. Just very quickly, this is what the model is, the geological model. Magma in a rifting environment, the mid-continent rift rises up through the crust along faults, hits the sedimentary basin, in this case, Proterozoic sediments in the Berg basin, which are loaded with sulfur in the form of pyrrhotite. And the intrusions move laterally along these sulfur-bearing horizons, assimilating sulfur. The system gets pressurized, they move up higher, move laterally again, move up higher. Eventually, they become volcanoes at surface. And we're down here in the plumbing. These little red blobs would be the ore bodies that we're after. So
let me pause you for a second, Mike. So is the formula to find these ore bodies, you find the intrusion. Well, first you find the right set of rocks, right? You're in the mid-continent rift. You know that you're in the right age domain. Then you find the intrusions, and then from the intrusions you follow the conduit down to these potential pools of massive sulfides. Is that the formula?
Basically, just going back here, there are different generations of dikes and intrusions here. You can see these green squiggles here. These are what are known as the Berg dike swarm, and they're not mineralized. But these purple dikes, which Dean Rossell created this map, calls the chrome-rich dikes, are the right age, and they seem to be associated with all the mineralization that's been found to date at Eagle, Boulder Dash, Roland, and Bic. So, but you're absolutely right. You need to find the right age and chemistry of intrusions coming up through the right type of sediments that have sulfur in them. And again, we're in the Berg Basin. These rocks would have been intruded at 3 to 5 kilometers depth. So there's been a lot of erosion, and it's brought the area of the plumbing system closer to surface. The best analogy, of course, to look at is the Eagle mine. Here's a cartoon just showing from Mike Lesher, just showing what happens. The magma comes up, goes laterally, goes up again, and you end up with sulfides accumulating in these horizontal phases of the intrusion. And also they flow back down and puddle in these areas. The magma rises, but the sulfide droplets are denser, so they come down and gather in these flat areas. So this is our LM intrusion here with the drill holes plotted, and we've drilled it down to about there. So everything below this line is speculative on our part, but we know that at some point this conduit with mineralization in it has to eventually end up emanating out of a horizontal phase of this, just like Eagle East. This little gray box down here at the bottom is a 1 million ton ore body. So it only needs to be 100 meters long by 60 meters wide and about 40 meters high to be 1 million tons of massive sulfide. And that would be quite a prize for us, even though it's not a huge deposit. It's very, very valuable. And
let me ask you another question, Mike. So that's an important point, because I know some people are going to say, well, if the strike extent open is only open for 300 or so meters there to the east southeast, and we don't know the vertical extent. It could be 100 meters, it could be 200 meters, it could be 10 meters. We just have no idea at this point. What kind of grade are we talking about for it to be massive sulfide? Like, based upon the drilling you did in 2021 and 2022, what kind of grade would we expect in the ore body to be massive sulfides?
We were able to calculate the grade of what 100% sulfide would be from the disseminated and blebby sulfides that we intersected up here, and using a formula developed by Tony Naldrit, who was an expert, a global expert in nickel deposits, and was a consultant to us. Tony's formula indicated that massive sulfides would be grading between 7 and 8% nickel and 7 and 8% copper. So extremely high grade, not as high grade as what Talon has at Tamarack in their new vault zone, but still pretty much higher grade than any other global nickel copper deposit of this
7%
type.
nickel, 7% copper is pretty high grade.
Yeah.
I've really never seen that over any real sizable area. I might have seen it for like a quarter meter or something.
Yeah, well, this area is unique in that it's because the sediments have so much sulfur in them, and you have a large magmatic event. You've got all the right pieces of the puzzle to form decent sized deposits. Here's the Eagle and Eagle East. The first Eagle discovery is off this cross section. It sits just a little bit west of this. Here's the Eagle East intrusion, and it's the same general morphology. It's steeply plunging, and then where it goes horizontal is where the Eagle East massive sulfide deposit is, and that's about 1.5 million tons at 3.8 nickel and about 3.5 copper. in something that's about 500-600 meters long. So here's our little dark shaded 1 million ton deposit, hypothetical 1 million ton deposit. So we've got room for at least that, if not more, at depth here, down around 600-700 meters, just above the unconformity with the basement. So that's really the target. And the reason we haven't drilled it is because 700-meter holes cost about $200,000 and each, and these are relatively small targets. So we're now very happy to have Talon, funded by Lundin, drilling next door to us again, because any success they have is going to have I think, a pretty positive impact on the perception of the value of our project right next door. It's the same system. They're over just a few hundred meters away, drilling blind, trying to hit the same horizontal conduit that we think is down at depth on our property. So stay tuned for more results there. I'm pretty sure if they hit what they're looking for, they'll be putting out some news to tell us about it.
Yeah, I was very encouraged that Talon has just mobilized a rig to Roland. I think that's fantastic news. And, you know, it makes the LM project that much more interesting that they're drilling literally 120 meters away from the property boundary.
Yeah, it's an exciting time, and it's a really great place to be exploring for this type of deposit. You don't need something very large to have tremendous value. Just quickly, this is a cartoon from Voisey's Bay. So this step pattern where these things come up, go lateral, go up, go lateral, that's really the same as at Eagle, as at Tamarack, as at Voisey's Bay. And here's as you said previously, a rather busy chart. This is global nickel deposits, the grade on the vertical axis and the tonnage on the horizontal axis. Eagle and Eagle East sit in here in the 3 to 4% nickel range. They're 5 to 10 million tons, so not huge deposits, but high grade relative to all the other deposits, which are these purple and green symbols. So we're right at the top end of the range. The Talon Tamarack recent vault discovery is up to 20% nickel equivalent. So that's pretty much unprecedented. And our calculated massive sulphide grades at 7 to 8% are still above just about every other known nickel deposit in the world. So I just jokingly call this the unicorn zone here. It looks like above 6%. You don't really have any other deposits worldwide. So makes the prize very valuable. So that's pretty much
6%. Nickel is incredibly high grade for a total average grade of a deposit. That's exceptional. We see some small intercepts from time to time from some companies that are able to hit massive sulfides above 6%, but it's not that common, quite frankly. And yeah, the Talon vault zone discovery, 21% nickel equivalent in that one intercept, was absolutely off the charts. I still think that might be the highest grade intercept, globally. I don't know of any other one over a substantial length above 20%.
No, and the guys that found that, Dean Russell and Brian Goldner and their teams at Talon, are leading the charge on drilling at Roland, right next to LM. So we know they're onto a pretty good target, and they have the means to go and find it. So looking forward to some success from them, and hopefully we can return ourselves with a bigger treasury and go and add some value to our project with our own drilling. So that's basically the next few months for the rest of the year. Lundin Talon drilling at Roland, I have been talking to the Department of Defense. We had a constructive call last week, so we may be able to access some funding from them, but there's no guarantees of that. I'll state that, and that's not something that's going to happen right away. That's going to unfold over the next few quarters. So I wouldn't put too much faith in that, even though it's something we are trying to get over the finish line. Perseverance Metals going public in September. We own 1.6 million shares, which at the recent financing prices is worth about $1 million. Perseverance has some pretty good-looking nickel target in Michigan. They want to drill in 2026, winter of 2026, so in 5 months. And they have their Lac-Guyot project in Quebec, which is a high-grade nickel-bearing system, similar to what we've been discussing. And also, they have some very large lithium-bearing pegmatites there that have attracted a lot of attention from some of the lithium explorers. So Perseverance kind of has a 1-2 punch of nickel and lithium in the same company, and both with significant potential for high grade and size.
Let me ask you something. Has Perseverance formally announced their trading date?
No, but it's somewhere. I'm hearing it's going to be the first couple of weeks of September. So
so now
it's coming. Yeah, it's coming very quickly in the next couple of weeks if all goes according to plan.
Okay,
and lastly, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just said very good. I was curious.
Yeah, and lastly, you know, the discovery of the high grade sulphides at Tamarack that Talon has achieved, I think has raised investors' understanding and interest in this type of deposit. So stay tuned for more good news from the Mid-Continent Rift and the Berg Basin and Tamarack. So let's run over to Nevada.
Yeah, let me start out with the conversation about the Walker Lane, Mike, because I think it's important to sort of set the stage. So when I was there in June 2023, your neighbor, you know, which is Allegiant Gold, AU on the TSX-V, pull up their chart for those watching this. It's interesting to see how this story has come alive here in summer 2025. I could see the potential that they had there in June 2023, and they were going to drill some deep holes targeting the boiling zone, yada, yada, yada. I think they did end up doing a couple holes. I'm not sure what they found, though. But it was kind of hard to buy the Allegiant stock back then because the company pitch was kind of like, we're not going to really raise any money or do any big drill programs until the gold price is above $3,000 an ounce. And it's kind of like, we have these great gold assets in the great gold state, but we think the gold price has to be a lot higher. And when it's a lot higher, then we'll be valued a lot higher. It was kind of a weird pitch for a junior mining company. So fade the scene a couple years later. Well, now they're raising $10 million. They're going to do a big drill program. They got their permits from the BLM. And all of a sudden, the market has visibility to catalysts, to news flow, and the stock has shot skyward. So the Walker Lane has really come alive here in 2025. Tell us about that, Mike.
Well, you know, it's been a historic mining district for 150 years. The Comstock lode up near Reno was a late 1800s discovery. You've got Round Mountain over here. Aurora Borealis, Santa Fe, Paradise Peak. There's a lot of deposits in here. Gold, well, the whole Tonopah district, of course, Goldfield. And in the last few years, Anglo Gold Ashanti has made a major discovery at the Silicon Merlin targets down in Beatty. I believe they're up to 15 million ounces of gold in resources there. So very big epithermal deposits in this belt, and obviously more to be found. So great access, fly into Las Vegas, about a 3-hour drive up the road to Tonopah, here about another 3 hours south of Reno. we're going to show you. I'm going to show you there's the landscape. It's almost flat with a thin layer of alluvium on top of bedrock. We call that the pediment surface. So shallow cover, and this is what we were prospecting when you came out to visit us. Allegiant is just to the east of us here. The first step in our exploration was to fly a drone magnetic survey to see what structural environment was sitting underneath that pediment. There's very little outcrop here, even though it's shallowly covered. And it was a pretty exciting survey. It gave us a lot of obvious structural trends. There's one there. This is just total magnetic intensity. And you got these sort of northeast trending structures, and you've also got the northwest trending structures of the Walker Lane. So they all kind of intersect here in this area right in the middle, which is an interesting target. These magnetic highs look like intrusions, which would be the source of heat and metals and possibly magmatic fluids that are driving the mineralizing processes. So there's several of these. And then just off to the east here is the Allegiant Castle Boss and Berg deposits. Let's just go to this. Here's a Google Earth image of the property, so you can see the alluvium coming out of the mountain range. Here's the highway in red between Reno and Vegas. There's the Boss Mine. There's a leach pad here. The Berg deposit is hidden under this alluvium. Absolutely no surface indications. So they used back in when it was discovered in the late 80s by others. They just used magnetics and looked for magnetic lows. And the Castle deposit is just off the edge here. So between the three deposits, Castle, Boss, and Berg, you've got about 20 million tons at 0.5 gram gold. And that's a little bit skinny, but the gold price has certainly cooperated. It's oxidized, so it can be heap leached. And I understand they've got a new geological team, and they're going to be focused on this area because down here on the pediment, I think the boiling zone is right about at the bedrock surface. In other words, you're not drilling 250 meters through a mountain to find your high-grade zone. Your high-grade zone is actually at surface here, based on what we're seeing over here. So this area is pretty prospective for oxide gold, open pit, heap leach. So and it won't be very expensive to explore. A quick bit of science here. Here's Silito's porphyry copper epithermal gold model. So you have the intrusions here, which I showed you some magnetic highs that may be reflecting that. Laterally in the overlying volcanics, you have high sulfidation right over the intrusion, and you have intermediate and low sulfidation more distal. This would be our most of our gold targets here in the structural environment, and then these are several intrusive targets. My Google has done some strange things to these slides, Robert. This has all been inverted, but
basically the point is that the erosional level here has made it so that the boiling zone is much closer to surface. You don't need to drill 400 meters. You might only need to drill 200 meters.
Yeah, or even less. You know, the Castle, Boss, and Berg deposits were discovered with reverse circulation drilling and rotary air blast drilling in the late 80s. And it was a brute force method, but it worked. There was enough gold around that they were able to define these deposits without any no obvious vectors, except for the edge of the Boss mine was outcropping, but Castle was completely blind, and so was Berg. So you know, these deposits are structurally controlled, so the key to finding them is finding the structures. And the other thing we brought to bear was I needed to go from this, where these two, this is our prospecting that we were doing when you came to the property. We found a lot of high-grade gold. These red dots are above 5 grams per ton gold. So there's, I apologize for that not being very legible, but you'll have to trust me. This is on the website if you want to zoom in. But you know, we got 5 grams, 28 grams, 38 grams in some grab samples here, some 1 gram, 2 gram material out here. And it's associated with the things that we think are structures or intrusions. So there's plenty of good grade mineralization. We'd previously been working up in the range on another property. These little red squiggles are the orientation of veins. So parallel to the Walker Lane trend coming through here. These are all full of mercury and antimony, so very high level, 1,000 feet higher elevation than down here on the pediment. So again, more evidence that that boiling zone is down here at this elevation rather than up in the mountain range. We then had to take these magnetic targets and prospecting targets to the next level. So rather than doing conventional soil geochemistry, which is expensive and could give us ambiguous results, we thought we'd try soil, measuring the pH of the soil over some of these structures to see what happens. And Barry Smee published this work back in the 90s initially. And when you have sulfides oxidizing at depth, they generate acid or hydrogen ions. Those hydrogen ions can pass at a molecular level right through any cover. And at surface, what you end up with is the calcium carbonate in the caliche layer, which forms in Nevada in the basins, gets redistributed. So over weathering sulfides, you would have calcium carbonate redistributed off to the margins here by the acidic plume. So that's kind of the pattern you're looking for. You get weakly elevated gold and arsenic, but you get calcium and strontium very strongly kicking around the margins. So that's the theory. This worked at a deposit in northern Nevada called Marigold. It detected the 8 North deposit under 100 meters of cover. So similar pattern where the calcium carbonate is redistributed. So we thought we'd give that a shot, and we did 700 soil samples, and sorry, lo and behold, we got some very strong responses along this linear trend here. Some strong responses over some mag lows up here on the Walker Lane trend. That one particular, this one, there's a recent wash here, so that that response is somewhat subdued, but it's there on the margins. And in the middle here, we got no response, so you don't always get a response. And some smaller ones here, and again, we'll look at some detail and some very good responses over some magnetic highs. So here's this linear trend in the mag with the good responses, the mag low up here. Here's a mag high, which we think is an intrusion, a very strong response over the peak of the mag high. So those targets are going to get drilled. Just zooming in here, this line 3 is right in this area here. We did conventional soil sampling over this as well. So these dots and numbers are gold in soil. So anything above 15, and these are parts per billion, 15 parts per billion and higher in this environment is considered anomalous. So we do have 16, 17 ppb here. These samples are 25 meters apart. We've got a 14 and a 13 there, so almost anomalous, and a little bit higher over on the flanks. And this is right over this magnetic low, which is probably what we hope is a mineralized fault zone with some sulfides in it. And the soil pH profile gave us a pretty typical pattern here, where you get the calcium carbonate or the calcium levels very much enhanced around these what we think are weathering sulfides. There's a rock sample, 0.83 grams I took as well to support all this. So that's an obvious target, and we're going to set up on the north side and drill angle holes across it. There's a scale bar there, 200 meters. So this thing's about 200 meters across and probably a kilometer long, at least in this central area.
Let me stop you for a second, Mike. Do you know how deep the sulfide zone is? Like, how far do the oxides extend at depth here?
Well, we haven't drilled any holes, so I can't tell you exactly how deep the bedrock is going to be, but there are sporadic outcrops around, and we know from the drilling at Castle, Boss, and Berg, the alluvial cover is anywhere from 10 to 30 meters thick for the most part. So that's just based on the previous drilling and the regional geology. Excuse me. Here's line 5, same idea. Some pretty strong responses over the magnetic low, and there's a 2-gram sample there. Line 6, we're moving east here. You get really, really strong responses again along this trend. Moving into line 7, these black dots are things that are greater than 0.5 gram gold in prospecting. There's a mag low on the Walker Lane trend, giving us a very strong response again in the soil pH. Here's line 11, gave us no response. Don't know why. Here's our line 22, which gave us an extremely strong response right over the peak of this magnetic anomaly. So we think that might be a mineralized intrusion, and the core of that might be the potassic altered higher grade core.
So line 22 is a large mag anomaly with high grade gold and float on the fringes of it. And then you have the soil, acidity test that you did that's lighting up right in the center of the mag anomaly.
Yeah, we were really surprised to see that response so perfectly situated right on top of the mag high, because this is basically untracked alluvium. I mean, there's nothing here. There's no outcrop. There's no change in anything on surface, and yet here we have this really strong response. So that's a really exciting target for us too. Here's these high grade around the periphery gold grab samples, 5 grams, 38, 12, 26, and they all have high silver as well. They're generally a 10-to-1 gold to silver ratio, or silver to gold ratio, I should say. So several hundred grams silver associated with some of these higher grade samples as well.
By the way, I have a question. Did you test for copper in any of these float and rock outcrop samples?
Yeah, well, we did assay for it, and it's this is the epithermal stuff. We didn't really get any samples over here. There wasn't really much to sample. Here you do have a little bit of outcrop, and we really didn't understand where this stuff was coming from, but there were large boulders of it sitting around. And I think it's much easier to understand in the context of the mag than it is from anything you see on surface. So we're clearly, as you pointed out, on the margins of what looks like an intrusion, and that's where epithermal gold forms. And here you got a strong magnetic low. So the other thing I like about this is the scale. That's a kilometer in diameter. So there are many porphyry systems around where a kilometer diameter is all you need for something fairly significant.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's several of these too. Well, here's another one with lines 11 and 12 over the areas where we got the high grade grab samples, and we're getting responses in the soil pH as well. So we'll be drill testing this one here and on line 13 as well as line 22. Moving all the way east off our property onto the Allegiant ground. The Berg deposit sits here over a magnetic low. The core of the deposit is in this little red circle. This is from Allegiant's 43101 report. And there are other mineralized areas here shown like this, but this was drilled with a lot of brute force, short vertical rotary air blast and reverse circulation holes. So no core drilling, no structural information, but they were able to follow a mag low and define this Berg deposit. So we ran a reconnaissance line over Berg, and lo and behold, we got a spike in the soil pH right over the core of the mineralization, which you wouldn't even know is there based on just the surface. It's completely flat and no reference points, no changes in anything over this material. So nice to see that this works over a known gold deposit. So the work that we've done with the aeromagnetics prospecting and soil pH has given us the encouragement to go out and drill some of these targets. We're planning about 10 300, 350, 400 meter holes, angle holes across these targets. We've got this 3 kilometer long structure on the west end of the property. We've got several 1 kilometer diameter porphyry copper targets in this in the package as well. And we have some things that are parallel to the Walker Lane trend on strike with our mercury and antimony rich veins to the north. So there's a variety of targets to test, and that's the plan for coming up in the next few months. Once we can pin down a drill rig, we'll be able to give you a little more certainty as to when that drilling will take place, but I'm hoping to get it done by the end of the year.
Mike, let's go back. Do you have a slide showing maybe some of the target areas you plan to drill? And let's talk about the rationale for the drill targeting. Like, what exactly are these holes meant to, investigate?
Well, looking at it simplistically, this is a linear epithermal target, as several kilometers long, 3 kilometers from here to here. So that's on a trend known as the Mina deflection in this area. So that this area, the Walker Lane, is a little unique because you have, rather than just the northwest, southeast trending Walker Lane structures, you've got crossing structures as well. And that's a good thing for forming gold deposits or porphyry copper deposits. So we want to drill 3 holes here over this main zone, where covered by lines sort of 1 through 5, 6. We want to drill another hole up here to capture this very strong response. There's another small response here, which isn't showing up very well. Let me see if we... yeah, I don't have a zoomed in version of that one, but we definitely want to drill where we're getting across these structures where we're getting a very strong response. There's a target up here in this mag low that we'll drill, and then we'll probably drill another hole starting just above the end of the first hole and keep going across this structural trend just to see what we're doing. So and then this high grade, the area beside the high grade float, this porphyry copper target is over line 22. That's a no-brainer. If that one hits anything of interest, we'll probably drill another hole here over this other mag high adjacent to it, which is about the same size, and there's a road right beside it, so it's easy to get the drill in there. Right. There's 2 more of them up here, but so the basic premise here is we want to drill about 5 or 6 holes in this trend. We want to drill one here. We'll drill another one there if that one looks good. We'll drill line 22. We might drill another one here if line 22 looks good, and we'll drill one down here around this area of high grade. So we've got a sort of 3 different target types here worth testing, and there's Berg, Boss, and Castle just off to the east. The other thing I liked here was that these deposits, these known deposits, are several kilometers away from this trend of what look like intrusions. And then on the opposite side of it here is some of our best targets. So these intrusions, if that's what they are, could have been the heat source and the source of a lot of the gold and silver.
So you have the epithermal gold and silver on either side of the intrusions.
Yeah, so these are porphyry targets here, porphyry, copper, gold, potentially moly. We're seeing some high moly and a few grab samples as well. So yeah, these are your porphyry intrusion targets and your epithermal targets off the flanks in the structures emanating from this general area. And this is on the Walker Lane trend, which may be an isolated intrusion of its own or not. We just don't know. But that target in itself is pretty decent size, 500 meters long by about 200-300 meters wide.
Okay, so 3,000 meters of RC drilling in Q4 of this year, 10 to 15 holes. I'm guessing hold depth 200 to 300, meters per hole. Budget about 450K.
Yeah, 450 US, and that'll leave us about 250 for working capital. So it's not a big program, but it's this project has never been drilled. There's never been a drill hole in this 35 square mile area west of Castle, Boss, and Berg. So we're the first people to tackle this, and the drone mag gave us a very, very compelling structural map, as it were, and now this the prospecting and the soil pH has just helped us refine the targets and give us something to point the drill at. So yeah, it'll probably take about a month to drill that, assuming all goes well. Yeah, we're pretty excited.
Yeah, I like Nighthawk a lot, Mike, because I mean it checks a lot of boxes in terms of the location. One of the best, mining states in the U.S. The Walker Lane Trend is a great area for gold exploration. You're near a major highway. You're 30 minutes from a town, a mining town. You've got great access to set up the drill pads. No major challenges in terms of getting a phase 1 program done here, and it's not super expensive. I mean, my God, it's less than $1 million to either say, hey, we got something that's worth more investigation, we've got something promising, or you just kill the project if the phase 1 program doesn't show any joy. It's pretty simple. It's pretty simple. And the work that you've done, the science that you've applied here is impressive. You're thinking outside the box. You thought deeper than the cover. There's not much outcrop, obviously. And so you're able to think deeper. Hold on, there's these gold deposits over here. Here's the setting. Let's do some mag, and let's look at some structures here and try to figure out what's going on. And I think you've got a pretty good, hypothesis for what could be at play here. Let's see what the drill program, reveals. But I think it's quite promising. It's very encouraging to me. And I definitely want to see this project get drilled, and so it will. You just closed the financing for $1 million, 5 cents per share with a half warrant at 10. Tell us about the share structure.
Well, first off, I just want to say we own 100% of Nighthawk, and there's no underlying royalties. These are just BLM claims, so it's 100% ours, which is a great starting point. As far as the share structure is concerned, we have 125 million shares outstanding. Myself and family own about 17 million. George Sanders, another director and longtime friend of mine, owns 6 million. We have a fund out of the Netherlands that owns about 15 million. So some pretty large blocks in some strong hands. Our market cap right now is about 8 million. And you can see on this 5-year share price chart, you know, it's been kind of a tough few years, there's no doubt. This spike up was during drilling of LM and in the nickel price short squeeze that took place several years ago. That didn't last very long. And once the short squeeze in nickel ended, the whole sector, nickel stories were no longer of interest to most investors. So this is coinciding with the time when we started to, we knew nickel would come back, but we wanted to add a gold component to the story because we could, reading and understanding the market after several decades in it, we knew that the gold price had a pretty good probability of rising significantly, and we thought we'd better get a gold project and better get it in a good jurisdiction with easy access. So that was why we ended up at Nighthawk. So, you know, my job is to give investors leverage to exploration success. And if you like gold, well, Nighthawk certainly has that leverage, relatively low cost to test. Allegiant renewing their efforts on our eastern end. They just announced a permit for 145 drill pads on the Castle deposit. So I expect they'll be very active there in the coming year. And also at LM in Michigan, the magmatic nickel-copper targets, we've got Talon and Lundin drilling 120 meters east of our property boundary. So two well-funded, well-run companies drilling on our property boundaries and potentially adding value. And then we'll do some value out of our own here with RC drilling at Nighthawk.
Great, Mike. Thank you. This is a great conversation. And by the way, that chart you have there in the presentation, if the viewers want to take a look at the Talon metals chart from, let's say, January 2022 to January 2025, they can do sort of, you know, like an apples to apples comparison, and pretty similar. In fact, maybe BTT actually even outperformed. I'm sort of cherry picking there because Talon peaked in January 2022 and then it fell 90% over the next 3 years. But then, lo and behold, they discovered some magic. They made a new discovery, an incredible new discovery at the vault zone earlier this year. And you can also see what the share price has done since Q1 of this year in Talon Metal. So that's what we're trying to do here. That's what Mike is trying to do here with a new discovery, either in Michigan or at Nighthawk. So thank you, Mike. I really appreciate this conversation. Cheers.
Thanks, Robert. Take care.